going to flip this to the Auburn angle, Mike, because this is the number one team in the country. They are playing in their own building. It's national television, right? It might have been on ESPN too, because ESPN decided that they wanted us to watch Luka Doncic and LeBron James sit on the bench instead of having a top 6 showdown on their own network. That's a different conversation for a different day. But at one point, Auburn was down by, I think it was 22 in the next 10-point lead in the first half. So I ask you, what happened? How did this happen to Auburn this badly?
Well, I mean, we talked about the physicality piece of it, and I thought Auburn got kind of bumped off course a little bit when Florida really threw that haymaker there. I'd say like mid to later in the first half. But just schematically, I talked about how Florida just wanted to play single coverage on Johni Broome, and I think Johni's been incredible this year. He's obviously one of the top 3 basketball players in the sport. In college basketball. But the one thing that he isn't extremely potent at is just back to the basket, post you up and score. So I thought early in that game, they got some stuff off of movement. And then when they started posting Johni, that's when Florida started to really get back into it, because they could just play single coverage, clear the glass, and get out and play with the pace that they play with. So it wasn't until the second half, later in the second, or I'd say midway through the second half, when they started to go back to their flex, back to their, single side, clear side ball screens with Johni. Like, you have to get Johni on the move. He's so much more effective on the move, right? Putbacks and as a roll man. I mean, I think he's shooting, I think I saw it today, 77% when he has to score off of being a roll man. And he's 42% from the field when he posts up. So that type of, differential there, you have to play to your strengths as much as you want to throw it into them, because they made a killing against Ole Miss, because they threw it into them. They knew they were sending 2, but the second you realize, like, hey, they're not sending 2 on Johni, then get him on the move a little bit more. And I thought that's where the game kind of got out of hand, in addition to everything that Florida was doing, right? Playing with pace, knocking down shots, keeping balls alive in the offensive glass with Houck and Condon and Chenyolu. I don't want to diminish what Florida did, because they did have a big hand in affecting Johni in that way. But I just thought that was a really key aspect for a really good offense in Auburn to kind of go away from what they've always done well was a little bit surprising.
Yeah, and the other part of it is, I think that once Florida started finding an answer to slowing down Broome, you could see it impact him in his body language, in the way that he was playing, and in the way that he was kind of caveat that I'm going to say this with the caveat that I think that Auburn is the best team in college basketball. I would have them ranked number 1 on Monday, despite everything that has happened, right? But they cannot let emotion and frustration impact their performance the way that they did today, right? We saw this happen last year in the NCAA tournament with Chad Baker-Mazara when he got tossed against Yale, and then they ended up losing to Yale in the first round of the dance, right? There was a moment tonight where he tried to draw a foul on a 3, missed the 3, didn't get the foul call. Florida goes down the other end, bangs a 3. As the ball goes in, there's a foul on the rebound. They end up getting the ball out of bounds underneath and running out of bounds play and bang another 3, right? So it ends up being a 6-point possession after he kind of sulked his way back down court after missing a 3-pointer. I thought Johni's body language late in the first half and early in the second half, frankly, sucked, right? And when Auburn made their run to kind of make this interesting and get back in the game, like, those guys were on the bench. This Auburn team is good enough where anything short of a national title this year, to me, would be something of a disappointment. They're the best team in college basketball. Their expectation should be cutting down nets on that first Monday in April. And if they are going to have nights where they kind of pack it in like this and sulk on a night when an opponent figures something out, or they don't have it going as well as they need it to, they're not going to – it's going to happen in the tournament. You're going to have a night where it doesn't go perfect, and you can't have that reaction emotionally be what happens to you. Again, they're the best team in the sport. But part of the reason they're the best team in the sport is because of the energy that they play with, right? This is not a team that's loaded with 17 different pros, right? This is not the 2012 Kentucky Wildcats that has like the first 2 picks in the draft and 5 first rounders. They win because they have really good players that play their asses off for 40 minutes. And if you're going to have, I think the word was energy vampires on the floor, the way that I thought that Janai and Chad were tonight, Jeff, that you're not going to be able to win a national championship when those guys play that way. They're your leaders. They're your veterans. They're 24 and 25 and 23 years old. They have to be better than they were tonight.
So I hate when people say this, but I actually believe it in this case. This was a good loss for Auburn tonight. This was a good loss for Bruce Pearl to get their attention because these dudes were walking around. Janai was playing poker, right, last night? Wasn't he playing poker with all the students out there? And that's cool and all. That is. It's really cool that he was doing it. I like it. But, listen, you should be locked in last night. You should be locked in your room last night, ready for this game. Like you said, Rob, you should be focused on a national title. That's where you're at this point, not effing around. And to me, I think Bruce Pearl now will have their focus a little bit better, and he'll be able to explain to them, yeah, you were number one, but you're not better. You're not more talented than Alabama. Alabama's going to be number one now, and we play them this Saturday. Duke still has Cooper Flag. We're not much better. The disparity is minimal, and if we don't play hard as hell, we're not the best team in the country because that is what made us so good. And they hadn't really gone through much adversity. They lost at Duke. That was 2 months ago. And there's no shame in losing at Duke. Everybody expects you to lose at Duke. So I think now, I actually think it's the best thing that could have happened to Auburn.
Yeah, I actually don't agree with that. Go ahead, Mike.
Just 20 seconds here. But we talked about this last Saturday when we talked about Auburn. And I mentioned it, one of their biggest strengths is their connectivity and their communication. And those two things I thought were lacking today. And it showed out there on the court. And I thought coming into the game, right when it started and watching them kind of walk around or on tip off, I'm like, dang, they are loose. They're really loose for this game today. And then as the game went on, I'm like, it might be too loose. And so being able to kind of rein that in, I agree with you, Jeff. I think, I also kind of disagree with the overarching, hey, they needed this loss or it was a good loss.
Me too. I hate that. I usually hate it.
But at the same time, I think it is an opportunity for Bruce Pearl to have a lot of really good film and be able to show some things that are hey, man, if we want to get to where we want to go, like you're saying, Rob, there's some stuff that took place today that was just unacceptable.
Yep, I agree. Listen, we need to talk about